My name is David Vos, and I'm an organic farmer. We till the ground, make compost, spread compost, make beds, plant beds, take care of them, spray them, water them, harvest them, repeat. Well, there is a definition of what organic is, and we are certified organic, which means that we have a third party audit us, and that is a outfit out of California, CCOF, that certifies us yearly, comes in, reviews our records, and we adhere to a rather stringent, strict set of rules and guidelines for how to produce organic food. And we also have a food safety program separate from that the state of Arizona monitors so that we do it in a safe way. To me, organic means that the materials used in growing the plants, the food, are safe and do not put the consumer or the environment at risk, or the farm worker. Really. That's where the greatest risk is with conventional, especially outside of this country, is to the workers who don't know what they are handling, fully what they're handling. From the very beginning, when I tried my hand at farming, there was no question in my mind I was going to be an organic farmer, prior to which I'd been a chef, and we bought a lot of organic produce, especially in California. The places that I worked insisted on it, and I don't even believe it was for the environmental, it was for the quality and the flavor of those vegetables that we were buying organically. They just tended to be a better product. I always have loved to cook since I was a little boy, helping my mom, and after a few years of college and during college, to pay the bills, worked in restaurants, flipping steaks or whatever. A little later, I decided to really get serious about cooking and went to New Orleans, worked with Paul Prudhomme, and started to see and experience regional cooking and regional cuisine using local ingredients like Paul did. Everything right out of the bayous, basically all the seafood and everything. I don't know that he bought anything from outside Louisiana, maybe olive oil. That led me to California, to Northern California, to work with some of the chefs that had helped form and found Chez Panisse in Berkeley, which was another very much about local produce, local meats and fish, and sort of learned that California cuisine, and went to New York, worked in Manhattan. But from the time that I was cooking in San Francisco, we used to go out to the farms and visit them, and I was a 20-something-year-old going out to these farms dressed up in my whites, as we called them, you know, the cooking gear, and we probably had a bottle of champagne too. But I remember walking around those farms and just absolutely falling in love with it, and telling my 20-something-year-old friends that from the restaurant, that I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do someday. And many years later, when I actually started farming, they reminded me of that, well, this is what you always wanted to do. So it's, for me, just it's all part of the same thing. Growing it, cooking it, eating it, consuming it. It's all part of the cycle of life that I get a lot of meaning from being a part of. The physicality of it is, the way I do it, it's 7 days a week in season, which is a long season. I rarely am sick or take any time off from it, and it's a 10 to 12 hour day. And it's not uncommon for small farmers to live that lifestyle. It's very much like if you're a small dairy. It's really a lifestyle and a total commitment, and it fits my personality too. As I have aged, and I'm 63 now, I find that it's harder, the physical. You can see you've got wrist supports, issues in your hip, your knee. I take really good care of myself, but I've put a lot of miles on the body. And when you work that much, and it does start to creep up on you, and I'm aware that I can't do this forever like this, and I really want to find a way to help other people do this, and then let it go to them, as much as anything keeps me in this is the hope that I can pass it on. And that, I have a lot of equipment and I could sell it all, and that would be just a meaningless exercise for me. What I really want to do is to encourage and help other people to take up this work and go further with it than I could, and build strong communities of growers. So that's what I'm working on. It's not like you can just open a book and it'll tell you exactly how to do it, but there are underlying principles of agronomy that if you understand them and apply them, over time you will have success. Now there's always the curveball, always something, and you never stop learning. And just when I think I know something, you realize you don't know everything, and it's humbling. But that's also part of the satisfaction of it, is that you're always mastering some other part and always tweaking your system. And you're trying to do that with an ever-changing workforce and an ever-changing environment, in that you may be losing your land and starting over. So your knowledge gets very deep. And I would say that I came to understanding what I do know of agronomy later in the game. I started out just farming, and I was fortunate enough to be farming on really good ground that was very forgiving, so I really didn't need to know exactly what was going on. It was only when I went into some very marginal ground that I really had to learn what the hell I was doing. And it about destroyed me in the beginning on really poor ground, because I really didn't understand what I needed to do. And even the agronomist that I had helping me didn't understand, because each piece of ground is a little different. Most people that teach agronomy don't start from a place with a piece of ground that is dead, basically, or damaged. Over the years I've read a little, but mostly it's applying principles, building the soil, not over-applying, but applying enough materials, having a very keen eye to noticing when things are changing in a plant. Getting out in front of things is better than, once you have a serious problem, trying to correct it. I suppose I've developed that eye that lets me see coloration changes in a plant and begin to say, And I do use lab testing, soil testing, tissue testing, all those things. I use whatever I can. I don't like to do a lot of it. It's expensive, and I like to think, if I have a good system, I can stick with my system, and that 9 out of 10 things will work just fine. But there's always that one, and then you start looking why. Especially here in this new ranch that has not been farmed for 50 years, I really had to just dig deep and use every trick in my bag, and then some. And so I'm learning new things now, because this soil is different than the soils I was farming just west of here, 10 miles. And the fact that it hasn't been farmed is a big part of it. You're really trying to build colonies of microbes, and it's a living soil that you're trying to build. So as you amend and as you balance and as you build organic matter, that becomes a much stronger force than one devoid of that, where you are when you're starting out, when you don't have good microbial populations, you don't have necessarily good soil tilth or drainage, you just don't have enough cycles of life, of plant life on it, to really condition it so that it can be really productive. But I would put any organic farm up against a conventional farm for productivity once you establish that base. Once you get it up and going and it's strong and balanced, I would say that you're going to produce more nutritional, better tasting, and stronger plants, and not need as much, maybe insecticide and those sort of things, because your plants are very strong. I think we're a dying breed, it appears, in this part of the country especially. The average farmer in the country is about my age. And I don't think we're going to replace, on the present trajectory, we're not going to replace the farmers we have. Here, everything's coming out of farming, so that may not matter here so much. But for food security overall, and I'm a big believer that every region should produce as much food as they can, we have to break through some of those stereotypes about what a farmer is, what farming is, and educate, like you're doing, educate people to the incredibly beneficial thing that it is, what a great career it is, and what a noble profession.
As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.
For one, we are a society many times of convenience, and the appeal and the growth of the superstore and the one shop stopping, we tend to think that it will all just appear for us from some community, whether that community is within this state, within the country, or somewhere in the world. And we stop really paying attention to our own connection to plants and how they grow and trees and nature, and we become dissociated from it. And so we don't have that connection ourselves to understand how important that is to get your food as fresh as possible and know the folks that are growing it, and that it really is the primary health care in your life is what you consume. And if you consume healthy food and with awareness, that probably will keep you well for most of your life. And that is not taught. And that is until more recently has been more of a fringe concept, you know? And so if you look around at what the restaurants that people frequent and what a large majority of the population eats, it's not healthy. And those materials that make up that food are sourced for the cheapest price. Almost always it boils down to price. Places where farming is successful and appears to have a future are places where cost is not the number one consideration of food. And those people have looked more deeply at the situation and recognized that they want that connection to the growing of it. And whether they do that themselves with a garden, and even if they do, they supplement their garden with what they buy from farmers and at farmers markets and at grocery stores that feature local growers. And that movement is growing and getting stronger. And I'm sure there are many reasons why people gravitate towards wanting to know where their food comes from. Eventually, you give up your food production, you may give up your security in many other ways. And I don't think we should. I think we should stay true to those principles and the roots of farming and always stay close to that production on some level within our communities. And I think there needs to be space made, even in urban settings like this one where so much development is occurring, so that we can still have farms, because small farms can be highly productive. This 40 acres can feed a lot of people. And so keeping small farming direct to the consumer, or where the consumer can come to the farm, is really important. Large agribusiness corporations can make decisions to move to another country, to leave, and that's what large corporations do. Small farmers are part of the community. They're the building blocks of the community, and so by supporting them, you're supporting open space, you're supporting habitats for the environment, you're supporting so many things. It just goes on and on how many things you're supporting when you're supporting a farm. And wouldn't it be great if our school systems reflected that in what we fed our kids, and that food was produced locally in our colleges? This is all stuff that could happen, is happening in some places, and it's the hope of the future that we could truly integrate small farms into our communities locally and benefit to all. Well, it's true, you shouldn't be wasting water in the desert, but indigenous people of this area grew their food and created the irrigation systems that brought the irrigation to the desert. And more than once, they rescued armies of the United States that were on their way to California with their skill, their incredible skill of growing in the desert. So once you understand how to do it, then of course there is the issue of making it as efficient as possible so that you're not wasting water. Like flood irrigation, really its time has passed in my opinion, and there are more efficient ways of using water. But to eliminate agriculture because it uses water, that water is captured in that food and you consume it. It's not like it's completely lost. It's there. It's just not exported. It's going right into it is exported many times out of this area into some other part of the country that's buying it. But on a local level, all that water most of it is reclaimed in the vegetables and the fruits, and therefore that feeds us. So I don't think it's, net zero. I think it has to be studied more and understood more that the many beneficial effects of agriculture in an urban setting especially far outweigh just building more and more industry and residential housing. There are many problems that come with that. I don't know if you've ever driven through an area that was being irrigated in the summer, but the temperature will drop 10 degrees. And I really believe that if we were really forward thinking in the development of the valley here, we would have integrated permanent agriculture into it. Years ago, when we were putting the I-10 through, we could have kept bands of land on either side of it, which would have made the drive through it incredibly beautiful, cooling. You'd have food production. And I don't know who wants to live on the freeway, but they're building homes there. So there's other ways to do it. Smart development, that's a good phrase. For the life of me, I just don't understand why we didn't see the opportunity to keep agriculture in our communities. There's just so many benefits to it. And I think we're going to find that out too late. Other areas that have thought about it and have been working on it have preserved tremendous tracts of ground so that there is a future and that you don't price out farms. In other words, the land values become extraordinarily high and farmers themselves sell out, or no one will lease to farmers because it's the use of the land. The cost, it just isn't going to bring back enough of an investment for someone. Some things have to be protected. I really believe farmland is one of those things. Just like we protect the oceans, if we had an open season on fishing, there are companies and people that would just take every last fish. And it's the same here with land. They will take every last piece of land because the free market is determining it. And I just don't think that should be the case. You shouldn't be able to take every last farm just because you can. That really has been a huge oversight here, and I believe a big mistake. So I'm trying to work towards the protection of farmland, the preservation of farmland. And it's an uphill battle here, but I'm still trying to build momentum and show that other places, other states have done this very well, and it has ensured a future of farming. I've farmed in those places, I've visited those places, I've seen it where there are many, many young farmers attracted to it because they can afford to do it, and because they can afford to do it, because the land has been preserved, and there was the foresight on the part of the community and the governments to do it, they feel supported, and therefore they're willing to take on the most difficult job of farming and then provide all that back to the community. It's a great cycle. But you got to first believe that it's possible to do and that you're wanted. I mean, I love growing plants. I love looking out and seeing them grow. I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and before that I cooked, and so I was connected to it. And I continue to do it now with the hope that somehow I can pass it on. If I stop, I can't pass it on. But if it's going, I feel like there's a chance that someone else will see the benefit, or others will see the benefit of what they could gain by coming and working with me. And so therefore there becomes some place for me to hand it off to, and then of course in conjunction with land being available here, which is a big if, but we're working on that. I do it in hopes that it goes beyond me. It's not just about me. It's about my community. It's about the future. It's my job, and I really love doing my job and focusing on my work. And I know that this work is deeply meaningful for me and for others. And so I do that really for the community, even though I feel like I live in a place where the community is really running the opposite way. There's still, you go to a farmer's market and there's people come out and they're just buying your produce, and they're not able to maybe buy bread and all the other things that they can at the grocery store, but they are supporting you and they're gaining something, and that feeds back to me, what I need to feel like I'm valued and like my work is valued. Because a lot of things, it boils down to the story is not told. And here the story is not told. Very little coverage about the loss of farms or what the farming life is. So the more people can see that story and connect with it, even if they never work on a farm, even visit a farm, they're going to know something about a way of life and a community of people that serve them. And maybe you're bringing this story along with others will make it more real.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire, whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living. We're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.